The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Mr. Johnson trying to find Freddie and Margaret looking for Lil. They look all around on Bay Street, Baintown, Palmdale and over the hill. Cross the bridge to Paradise Island, but alas to no avail. So they all come to one conclusion, they're in Freeport or they're in jail. So if you're looking, searching and worrying, you'll find it's true without any fail. If you can't find your friends in Nassau, they're in Freeport or they're in jail.
Good yawning this morning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. It is Wednesday, the 1st of June, 2022, and you are on the clock with Erin Greene. On the clock, we engage organizations, institutions, social and cultural leaders, and ordinary people to better understand the impact of public policy, private sector development, and emerging social and consumer trends. On the clock, we have conversations that help us understand and navigate a rapidly changing Bahamas. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is the 1st of June. June is, officially as far as I am concerned, Labor Month. We need a whole month to deal with all of the labor issues in front of us. We need a whole month to commemorate and celebrate the successes of labor unionists and laborers and workers past. We need a whole month to plot the way forward, to chart a new course for workers in the Bahamas. For what is a plantation without its workers? What is a country without the people who drive it forward every day on their hands and knees? What is a country without its workers? There's no one more important than the worker, the laborer, the employee, the person that drives your company, the person that generates your revenue and your profits. Who is more important than the worker? In fact, how do you justify maintaining a business if you cannot pay your workers? How do you justify having a company generating revenue, making profit? I like profits. Money upon money, but you can't see fit to pay your workers a decent wage. You can't see fit to ensure that your workers can travel safely and efficiently from home to work. You can't make sure that your workers have access to not just adequate, but the best health care available to them. How could you run a company and make record profits, but your workers don't have access to healthy, affordable food. How could you be employing people and they cannot afford to do the things that we demand of good citizens, like have insurance, health, life, car, home, content? That's like when you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a house, but you rent, you're supposed to get contents insurance. It's almost as if we truly do believe it is a plantation. And that as long as I am the boss, I am the master. And you do whatever I say. We do not protect workers from sexual abuse, harassment, and assault on the job. In fact, many workers are subject to that behavior and treatment from their bosses. We do not protect employees and workers from tyrannical employers who will lie about their employment terms and the law, will lie about paying NIB, will lie about pensions, insurance, benefits, and medical care. See, this is not the country that was led into majority rule and independence by the workers. This is not the country that was led into some semblance of economic autonomy by the workers. So you're going to have to stop pretending that this is the same country. You can no longer sit on those laurels. That's what y'all fancy people say. You can no longer ride that tag. That era is finished and over. We need a new vision and a new dream. Yesterday, I got a very interesting text that I declined to read on air because it was not appropriate for the conversation that we were having. But the text read, "Erin, you are a hypocrite. 4 former union presidents ran for the FNM last year. I need you to start being fair and balanced and stop your FNM foolishness." Well, dear text, if you had listened to Connected with Lester Cox from 2014 to 2017 and beyond, you would see that I apply equal pressure to the FNM and the PLP, and particularly in this union issue, for no party respects the worker. Every party has used the labor movement to advance its own agenda, its own agendas and goals. What we call a labor movement now, my friends, but for a few strong, fierce voices, is a joke. And I can say that because over the last 2 years, in the midst of the pandemic, the workers have been left to defend themselves in the face of the tyranny of the entire state. Laws being changed to benefit employers, that's one thing. The unwillingness to engage the workers consistently, clearly, with a sound voice, explaining to them what is happening and why it is happening, giving them a timeline for when you expect to repeal these provisions. What is the strategy leading us from point A to point B? You don't even think you need to talk to the workers. From the moment the former prime minister got up in the House and said, well, we may have to breach the Constitution to run the country. I'm paraphrasing slightly. The labor movement should have been up in arms that the Prime Minister would urge or encourage employers to urge or encourage employees to take a vaccine in the face of employers coercing and threatening to fire employees if they didn't take the vaccine. Who is the labor movement for? Who is it for? Is it for the workers? Or is it for those who dare to dream to be a part of the political class? If we don't take care of the workers, even the plantation will fall apart. Dear labor movement, the workers in your country, the backbone of this nation, rely on you to protect them. And for God's sake, is it not clear to everyone that they need protection? Across the board. There is dignity in all work. All work. We're still investigating politicians, though. I can be honest. We're still trying to figure that one out for politicians. But there's dignity in all work. Got two texts very quickly. It's about time somebody stand up for the laborers of the Bahamas. Too many of these unions are just a name brand. I believe the new umbrella union would do well, so don't feel bad. You have to work for what you want in life. The workers have been taken advantage of for far too long. Belinda has always been a strong fighter. Thank you, texter. Another quick text. Great show as usual. You need to give my employer this speech that nothing is more important than the worker and a decent wage. I work downtown to an architectural firm through Elizabeth Avenue. You need to come in person to give this Philistine this speech. I want to use some unchristian-like words to describe this person, but I won't. Great show as usual. How come in the private sector we don't have a labor union? Because we get treated worse than government employees. Y'all don't think we need protection. All workers need protection. And this argument that if you wanted a better life, you'd have done better in school is unchristian and it's intolerable. Everybody deserves a good life. All right, callers, we'll do this quickly. I've got a guest in the Zoom room. We got an important conversation for this morning. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
The last test I talk about.
Oh, man, I am so sorry.
They talk about union workers, but the union only.
Caller, do me a favor. Try switch phones and call back. Let's get to that second call. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock. All right. No problem. Sorry. The first call was just not clear enough to engage the conversation. Please call back. Second caller, please call back. Well, today is June 1st, and that marks the beginning International Pride Month, the LGBTI Pride Month, and there are going to be tons of conversations and events taking place throughout the country, throughout the region, throughout the world during the month of June. I have to say, I missed what I think turned out to be an amazing conversation last night at the Turn Gallery that's on the Western Road called Colonial Swag 2. And it's a conversation centered around an art show called Colonial Swag by April Bay, a formidable and just amazing, a local and international, but Bahamian artist. I think Natino Thompson, Ide Thompson, and Deandra Brister were three of the presenters on the panel, and all three of them are guests or hosts of the Eye Opener, Guardian's Saturday morning show from 9 to 11. I heard it was an awesome discussion, but I had just too many constraints. First of all, I didn't get my visa to get from the eastern end of the island to the Western Road in time. I was very, very concerned about flooding with all the rain, but nobody told me that they did fix up the Eastern Road one day after the great flooding of April, the end of April, the great flooding of May. They fixed the road after. Somebody should have told me that, then I could have made it out there. Also, I didn't know that there's subsidies on gas for people traveling out to the Western Road. Next time, I'll be prepared for that event. I hope that there will be a Colonial Swag 3, and I hope that conversation will take place a little closer to the center of the island. But I heard it was a very, very good time. So the conversation we're going to have right now, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's an important one. Joining us today is Dr. Kirk Christie from the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center. Now, he's going to talk to us about anxiety, depression, pandemic effects, and eco-anxiety. But I titled it, Mental Health in the Time of COVID and the Land of Hurricanes. And we're going to be looking at some mental health issues and how they are exacerbated, or like how they grow, like they expand in the midst of the hurricane season. Good morning, Dr. Christie. How are you?
Good morning, Erin, and good morning, Bahamas.
It is great to have you in. I know we are one day past the month of May, which was formerly International Mental Health Awareness Month. But it's never too late to have a conversation about mental health. And so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do, and then we're going to go to a break, and I'm going to give people the call-in numbers in case they want to ask you any questions or join the conversation.
Yes, Erin, I'm delighted to be here to present for a short while on major depression, anxiety, the pandemic effects, and new concepts known as eco-anxiety and solastalgia, and looking at the interaction between the pandemic effects and hurricanes. I'd like to extend a hearty good morning to the staff of Detox Ward at the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, the Lignum Vitae unit, and the leadership of Senior Nursing Officer DeAndrea Bethel, also the Community Counseling and Assessment Center, the nursing staff and ancillary staff, under the leadership of Senior Nursing Officer Nan.
Absolutely. I want to say good morning to everyone up there. We want to say thank you for doing the work that you do, for making that commitment to some of the most vulnerable people in our country. And so, if you'd like to join this conversation this morning, if you have any questions, if you would like to share experiences, you can call us at 323-6232, 325-4316, or 325-4259. You can also text us on the Guardian Radio text line. That's 422-GR96. That's 422-4796. That's powered by BTC. Standard text rates apply. Listen, you can tune in on channel 969 on cable or channel 612 on Flow. Or remember, download the Guardian Radio app. Take us wherever you go on your Apple or Android smart device. And you can listen on the audio feed or watch us on the video feed right there. Or switch directly to GuardianTalkRadio.com. Producer, take us to a break. And when we get back from the break, we're going to delve in to some of the questions we've all been asking ourselves over the last 2 years. Stay tuned. Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
We're good for you. We know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options. We're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
Preparing for a hurricane can make all the difference in safeguarding lives. By knowing what actions you should take to reduce the effects of hurricane disaster, get all the facts of the potential of having insurance, impact-resistant windows, home emergency power, surge protectors, essential supplies, plus so much more before the storm, after the storm, where to purchase building or cleaning supplies, waste disposal, medical care, which auto shop to go to after driving through flooded streets, and more. The Nassau Guardian's Hurricane Guide will help to make sure everyone knows what to do in the event a hurricane approaches. Take advantage of this double insertion opportunity plus 15 radio commercials. Contact us today at 302-2300 or your account executives. Will you be prepared?
A local paper in Grand Bahama is back every Tuesday as a section of the Nassau Guardian. Available at local stores, gas stations, pharmacies, Western Bakery, and Bellevue Gifts. Daily and, of course, on Tuesdays too. Want to reach your Grand Bahama audience? Then call Barefoot Marketing at 827-4578 or message them for ad rates via their Facebook page. Advertising opportunities now include classified ads too. Keep up with all the latest Grand Bahama news in the Guardian newspaper every Tuesday.
Good morning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You're on the clock with Erin Greene, and joining me this morning is Dr. Kirk Christie. Good morning again, Doctor.
Yes, it's a delight to be here once again to present for a short while on these very important topics.
Yes, thank you very much. We got a broad list of questions. I'm going to delve right into them. And so the first question on the list is, what exactly is anxiety? See, because when I was little, I used to be anxious all the time that my daddy was going to catch us watching the satellite when we wasn't supposed to be watching the satellite. But and I was always worried that I'd get in trouble for that. Is that what anxiety is?
Erin, it's a little more than that. Certainly, in contemporary times, there's a lot of negativity associated with having anxiety and experiencing anxiety. But anxiety is a normal part of life. Certainly, anxiety has to be managed, and there are instances where intense anxiety symptoms can become pathological. But some amount of anxiety is normal. It's instinctual. It's governed by certain hormones in the body that help us to give us protection in our environment, certainly from harm, and especially when we are encountering stress, stress from family, stress from job, and stress from life in general. We're able to experience anxiety. It also helps us to be productive, to get up each morning, to take care of our children, to prepare our children for school, to navigate the road. I often hear you talking about your experiences on the roadway, and certainly we have to be mindful of the anxiety that persons experience when they do navigate the roadway. Mm-hmm. But some degree of anxiety is normal. When it becomes pathological, the symptoms are distressing to the person, and it can cause impairment in one's functioning, and that's when we know it's pathological and requires a medical evaluation and a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation to rule out any disorders.
Right. So if it stops you from doing the things that you need to do or that you normally do, then it's definitely time to talk to a doctor.
Yes, and because there is a hormonal basis, there could be some disruptions in the hormonal system in the body. And so if you're experiencing your heart racing, it's intense, you're having feelings of short, shallow breaths, if you're having chest pain, and even feelings of impending doom, it's good to see your primary medical doctor to rule out a medical cause. Mm-hmm. And there are certain medical conditions that can mimic the anxiety disorders as distinguish in our Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, and the current one is the DSM-5, and that's quote unquote the Bible of psychiatry. It has well-defined criteria that guides psychologists and psychiatrists in coming to a diagnosis.
All right. Is there, are there situations where we should be anxious, or if you don't feel a bit anxious, then maybe that's an indicator of an issue?
Yes, I often tell patients we have to feel our feelings. There are times when we get surprising news or shocking news, or we hear the death of a loved one, whether it be a immediate family relative or an extended family relative. There will be anxiety. You will feel the heart racing. You may feel heat over the muscle. You may have dry mouth. You may get lightheaded or dizzy. So in these cases, it's normal, and it's good for individuals to express their feelings. Oftentimes in our country, we tell people we are so dismissive when persons are experiencing these anxiety symptoms and other symptoms of grief. We often are dismissive, and we tell them to sit down and what are you worrying about? But it's good for us to feel our feelings and not to keep our feelings frozen. It will help us to understand and really go through this process of dealing with our normal symptoms.
Are there like classes or spaces where parents can learn about these things? Because I could see a parent getting easily frustrated with an anxious child, or a parent getting frustrated with a child who's trying to express these things and can't articulate it very clearly. Is there a space where parents can learn how to engage their children and the young ones, the nieces and nephews, about things like anxiety and depression?
Erin, another good question. And once I was preparing for this topic, one of the most important things for me to iterate to parents is to self-educate. And there are wonderful websites out there. The mayoclinic.org has a very good patient information and information for laypersons. There are certain YouTube videos that you can watch. There is if there are issues, however, in the school environment and you see them also occurring in the home environment, then it may be time to have your family physician do a medical evaluation and a referral to a mental health professional. If you see intense anxiety symptoms appearing in your child, the child is not performing very well in the classroom and have declining academic performance, then it's good for you to talk with your family physician, have them do a medical evaluation and a referral. If it's a functional problem, they'll refer on to a child and adolescent psychiatrist and psychologist for the comprehensive evaluation.
Absolutely. What are some of the treatments for anxiety disorders? Because I'm almost certain that the child, catch yourself before I slap you, is not a treatment for an anxiety disorder.
Yes, oftentimes we are dismissive of persons who are having difficulties. And I just want to underscore that the main anxiety disorders that we're seeing now are called panic disorder. We're seeing a lot of that, especially it's one of the long-term pandemic effects. We now see persons having reoccurring panic attacks presenting to their family physician or their GP, and certainly they have to have a medical evaluation. Once that medical evaluation is done and there are no underlying medical problems, they'll be referred on to a mental health professional for talk therapy and medication management. But what I would say to persons, do not be dismissive of your symptoms. If you're having impairment in life arenas, especially your occupational arena, your family life, social life, you're not keeping commitments, you're being more absent from work and underproductive at work, it's time to speak with your primary physician. The other common anxiety disorder that we are now seeing is the generalized anxiety disorder. And this is where persons have 3 or more stresses appearing, and They occur for a period of 6 months or greater than 6 months, and it could be the stress of family life, relationships, financial stress, and other work stress. And there's a progressive fear of the future. And with the generalized anxiety disorder, there's an accompanying symptoms of muscle tension, headaches, a lot of fatigue. Also, the person may also be having anxiety or panic attacks along with the generalized anxiety disorder. And they may also be having sleep disturbances, notably having difficulty falling off to sleep, or in some cases, they fall off to sleep with ease, but they have early morning awakening where they are up early in the morning between the hours of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. and they cannot get back off to sleep. So the generalized anxiety disorder is another one. The third one is adjustment disorder with anxiety symptoms. And adjustment disorder is just a big word for stress. The person's having stress from in life arenas, whether it be their work-related stress, family stress, financial, monetary stress, stress also of a known origin. There's some persons who just are worried. They are deep worriers or ruminators, and they can develop an adjustment disorder and have anxiety symptoms and even anxiety attacks, which may lead them to the emergency room or to their family medicine practitioner.
Wow, yes. I was just thinking about two things. I'm thinking about workers and employees, laborers, and anxiety in the workplace, fear about the future, and then in particular, people who are experiencing, one or more stresses at the same time. There's uncertainty about home life because there's uncertainty about work life, and one exacerbates the other. Are there programs that or opportunities for employees to seek counseling for work-related stress, or is there anything available for just general anxiety, dealing with these general anxiety orders, but specific that cater to or are designed for employees and focus around the uncertainty of the future?
Yes, Erin, you've made a good point, and I concur with you. Within certain organizations, they have employee health programs whereby if they're seeing certain symptoms with respect to their employee or the subordinate, they can be referred to a medical practitioner or a mental health practitioner for evaluation. But we need to do more. We need to educate the general populace and point them in the right direction. During this ongoing pandemic, mental health has actually been in what I regard at the rear of the focus. But we know from disaster psychiatry that the psychological imprint as it relates to pandemics is always larger than the medical footprint. And so we have to now educate our populace about anxiety, letting them know about self-care, how to employ stress tactics, stress coping strategies, coping mechanisms in their daily life, and also on the job, be able to take little breaks so that you can do the deep breathing technique. You can go outside, take a little break and relax, especially if you're being stressed. The issue now is that the pandemic is ongoing. Usually disasters, they leave their damage, and especially with hurricanes, they impact and then they leave, and then there is the cleanup and the reconstruction. With respect to the biological pandemic, which is the COVID-19 pandemic, it remains, and it is impacting all of us every day. And so we now perceive that there's an uptick in the infections. But we don't know yet. We'll have to look at the objective data, but we have to still be vigilant. We still have to avoid congregant activities and maintaining sanitization and wearing the appropriate mask when we outdoors. So this is also affecting us and can lead to COVID fatigue or COVID burnout.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I want to sort of segue into a question about depression, and I want to ask you, is it fair to say that unchecked anxiety or, not engaging anxiety disorders can lead to depression?
Yes, another good question, Erin. We know that anxiety can occur with depression episodes or episodes of depression, and also depression episodes can occur with anxiety. And so they are comorbid, they are co-occurring.
Okay.
And so when a person is referred to a mental health professional, they will undergo a series of screening. We screen for major depression. We screen for generalized anxiety disorder. We also screen for panic disorder, the three major anxiety disorders that I mentioned. And then we also screen for adjustment disorders, which have a clearly defined acute stressors. So if the person is under enormous stress from work, enormous stress from their family, they may have marital discord or loss of a home, that they cannot maintain a mortgage, whether it's a business mortgage or residential mortgage, home mortgage. These are major stresses that can push the person into states of anxiety and also underproductivity and absenteeism from work. But you're right, we have to be like detectives when we're examining the patient and seeing the patient anew every time that they present. Because 3 months in the past, a person may have been stable and resilient and coping well, but 3 months later on, if they are hit with hardships and certain acute stresses, they may be exhibiting signs of an anxiety disorder.
Absolutely. I've got a caller on the line I want to go to, and then when we're done with the caller, can we talk about re-traumatization a little bit, right? Because I was just thinking, like you said, you see somebody, you've seen them for weeks, and there's positive progress, and then they come back for another session, and it seems like things have fallen apart. Could it be that they've been re-traumatized by a situation? But let's get to this caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock.
Erin, Greene, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
The doctor, right?
Yes, Dr. Kirk Christie.
Yeah, I got his name. So I doctor. I agree with him. I was during the hurricane season, during the hurricane watch period. I listened several years ago. Listened to the National Voice, and this lady was screaming. She was screaming off her head. She was living all by herself, and she got panical. And there was no counseling line set up. I think that during disaster, especially a hurricane disaster, there should be several trained counselors hired and be on that counseling line to help folks who have that anxiety, because then they try, but their place was to carry out the information. Their place was not to do a counseling, what have you, but they did their best. But I see that if they have that line, we need that now, Erin, Greene. They would connect that to that person. It would be like several different lines and combined with two telecommunication companies, maybe 3 in the future.
Yeah.
They'll be able to provide these lines, and they'll be able to call you and get counseling. Click 1, 2, 3. Have a good day, Erin, Greene.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And thank you. I think that's an excellent point, that there should be counseling hotlines or services available on multiple platforms, depending on how people can connect during and post storms, eh?
Yes, Erin, and just a comment. I just want to say that after Hurricane Dorian, there were psychological and psychiatric mental health team responses to the affected islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama. And certainly when we are to look at our national mitigation plan, disaster mitigation plan, we need to improve upon it to include more of the hotlines, crisis hotlines, where trained personnel in psychological first aid are able to administer PFA, which is one of the methods used immediately within the first, well, after the first 2 weeks of a major disaster, there's a response. Once the all clear is given by the National Emergency Disaster Management Committee, response team goes out and makes sure that it's all clear for personnel to be brought into the impact zone. But PFA is the first thing that ought to occur, psychological first aid.
Yes.
And it's an evidence-based program where trained personnel can meet with the survivors of the disaster. But yes, we need to improve upon it, and certainly for the future, because it is probable that we will see another meteorological event again in the future. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we live in a hurricane zone, and so we have to plan and prepare for the future and for prospective storms that may come close to us or even impact another island.
Right. And how best can we do that? What are some coping mechanisms? Well, not even coping mechanisms, because that suggests that it's something that we can't overcome, that we just have to deal with. But what are some ways that we can always be prepared mentally and psychologically living in a hurricane zone? Because that's a big thing for me, and I try to make sure that I don't fall on one side of the scale, which is, well, hurricane could come, if it blow, it blow, if it don't, it don't. But I don't think that's necessarily a helpful attitude to approach a storm with. What are some mechanisms or tips that you can share with people for living in a hurricane zone?
Erin, you've made a very good point. And one of my previous mentors in medical school, he used to say, Dr. Sebastian Peter, he would always say to us as medical interns, practice, practice, practice. And so we have to institute programs ahead of the hurricane season. And this is very important, that for every household in the Bahamas to have your household safety plan. And so now you should, well, 2 weeks ago, you should have gotten bottled water, canned goods, have an area in your home where you can designate that would be a pantry to get additional canned items, bottle items, such as bottled water, have batteries, ensure that your flashlights are working properly. This is the time, if you have elder relatives living in your home, or if you are suffering with any major medical issues or mental health disorder, that you top up on your medication. If you know you're going to run out before the end of June, it's good to see your medical practitioner and get a revised prescription for your medication. And so, as I tell families, you can include your children in the preparation, and this will help them to build resilience. And a lot of people in the Bahamas are resilient. I had outreach to North Andros after the landing of Hurricane Matthew. And so there was a mental health team that was sent to North Andros. There was some impact from the Hurricane Matthew, and certainly there are mental health teams that are sent out after the all clear is given. But we need to prepare, and we need to practice this habitually, so that it becomes part of us, ingrained in us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that is what is very, very important for young people and for children in particular. If you are anxious, they're going to be anxious. You could be strong and wrong, You could be wrong and strong, but when you're certain, it provides a degree of comfort for the people who are following you. And when your family and your kids see that you have a plan, and they know the plan, and they know that you know what to do if the plan starts to fall apart, the degree of comfort that will give them is something amazing.
Yes, and this is a time also to educate your children about what is a storm, what is a hurricane. They can go online and look at some of the YouTube videos on what is a hurricane. NASA has some very good online videos on YouTube. They also can read a little bit at the National Hurricane Center on hurricanes and storms. So if you tell them what a storm is, you give them some of the geography and the science behind it, you are also building resilience in your children, so that when there is a hurricane warning issued, or there is a eminent impact of a storm, your children will have a level of resilience, and then you just offer support, you rally around them, and you encourage them with positive self-talking and let them know that they would be in a safe environment and that you would protect them at all costs.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's get to, well, we didn't get to the re-traumatization part, right?
Yes.
But let's do that, and then let's get to the new concepts, eco-anxiety and solastalgia. Is that like when I miss the sun? If I go to Canada, sir, am I going to get solastalgia?
Well, solastalgia is similar to nostalgia, which is a big word for homesickness. Like if you're away for many years, maybe more than a decade, and you desirous of the Bahamian cooked meal and you want to be in the tropics, that's nostalgia. But solastalgia is the anxiety related to changes in the environment to which you are connected. And certainly a lot of our citizenry who were displaced from Abaco, they would be experiencing solastalgia. And solastalgia is a new concept that the American Psychiatric Association is looking at. It was proposed by a philosopher and geoscientist, Albrecht from Australia. And he wanted to look at how climate change is affecting all of us and citizenry, especially in areas that are susceptible to flooding, tornadic activity, volcanic activity, those natural disasters. So solastalgia is that anxiety related to climate change, and that we are helpless. We're seeing our environment change, and we cannot do anything about it. And that's a concept of solastalgia. Eco-anxiety is a fear of environmental doom. It is similar, but it also relates to feelings of guilt, also dissentment when we see deforestation, when we see persons, littering, and persons do not have a connection with their environment. And we know from disaster and climate psychiatry that now we're moving into the realm, there is no health without planetary health. We have to be mindful of the environment. We have to be mindful of Mother Earth. We have to be connected to our environment and protect our environment. And so eco-anxiety, it's a new concept, and it is not a diagnosable disorder at present, but it was highlighted in 2017 by the American Psychiatric Association. There's some very good videos online at YouTube that you can read about eco-anxiety.
Wow, yes, and I can imagine, like when I tell my mommy, when a young child says to their parents, man, I miss going to that particular beach. I miss going camping. I miss going fishing on the edge there. And the parents look at them and say, well, listen, there's nothing that we can do. Rising sea levels have completely covered that area with water, and we just can't go back there. That's what we're talking about with solastalgia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we are rendered helpless because we see it unfolding. And with solastalgia, it is not reversible. There is evidence now of climate instability. The evidence is real. We have to do something in terms of delaying the heating of the atmosphere and the rise of the climate overall temperature in the atmosphere. And so the Paris Accord has been undertaken by countries, whether or not it's achievable. But we have to look at arriving at carbon neutrality by the year 2032 to avert this 1 degree Fahrenheit rise in atmospheric temperature.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We have a call on the line, and then we're going to talk about ecological grief for a second. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Greene. Good morning to your guest. Yeah, Ms. Greene, the word anxiety, right? I think anxiety is something that's natural, right? So I think I have anxiety without the fear. I'm angry, so it's anxiety. And so maybe they could put that in the DSM, because every time these jokers sit and meet, they decide what they put in their diagnostic and statistical manual. They make their diseases, and they always want to add diseases. But I want to know, do they have I haven't heard, they don't normally recommend natural cures for anxiety, like meditation, deep breathing, exercising, essential oils, massage therapy, they're always pushing these pharmaceutical drugs, right? And the thing is, most people, the thing is, I'm so far ahead until I'm scared.
Yeah. 52. Now, Dr. Kirk Christie this morning didn't push any pharmaceutical solutions on anyone. In fact, I'm certain that he mentioned some of the things that you also mentioned just now as treatments for anxiety, general anxiety, and not necessarily a anxiety disorder that's diagnosed. But I appreciate what you're saying. One of the questions that I always want to ask, but can't necessarily find the right place to put it, is a certain degree of depression or anxiety expected given the current state of the world? Is it ridiculous for us to expect young people to be calm and happy with the way that things are going, quote unquote, and just accept it as normal, given the levels of poverty across the world, the levels of food insecurity and insufficiency, the levels of violence, particularly towards young women and boys and girls and children? Is some degree of anxiety and depression expected in this modern world? So, I mean, I could appreciate where you come in from, 52, but I don't think that Dr. Christie is promoting those aspects that we're most concerned about in the mental health field.
If I may,
Yes,
can I
yes.
respond?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is all based on the assessment of patient and the history of the symptoms that the patient is exhibiting. But we follow what is called a biopsychosocial approach to the treatment and care of our patients. And it involves medication, may be a part of the treatment and care. There's also psychotherapy or talk therapy. And there's also psychoeducation about the general adaptation system, which is a natural or the normal body stress response. And so the psychiatrist and even the medical personnel has found that really truthfully educating persons about anxiety, it is one of the most important things that any trained medical practitioner can do to lessen the severity of anxiety symptoms and potential anxiety attacks. Medication is indicated if there are moderate to severe symptomatology that is distressing. The person is having distressing symptoms and their life arenas are being affected by the symptoms, whether it be their work life, their family life, and social life. But it's not an all or none thing where we just prescribe medications for every situation. No.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Christie, I would like to thank you very much for joining me this morning. I've got some texts here. One of them is, I'm going to paraphrase it slightly, right? The text sort of came in as soon as I identified the institution that you work for. How can we remove the stigma behind the word Sandilands, right? Like, how do we remove the stigma around mental health and psychological health and wellness? And like, I want crack jokes, but I'm being very sensitive and careful so that I don't suggest that this is just a laughing matter, you know? Yes. How do we shift the culture around mental health awareness?
Yes. Very good, Ms. Greene. And what I would like to say is that we can change the name of Sandilands overnight, and there will still be persons who will have stigma or there will be embarrassment of entering for treatment and care. But we have to educate the general populace about medical disorders and mental health disorders. And there is no health without mental health. When you look at mental health disorders, they're essentially brain disorders. And the brain is one of the most important organs that you have in the body, as it coordinates all of the information that is conveyed to other organs. It is an organ of higher learning, and there are a lot of mystery about the brain. But as we speak, neuroscientists are working diligently to learn even more and more and unlock the secrets of the brain functioning. So we have to educate at a populist level. We also have to let people know that we are a safe environment. That's our community counseling and assessment center. And if, God forbid, you have to be admitted to Sandilands, it's just another hospital where you're coming in and you're getting medical assistance. You're also getting the mental health care and treatment and by way of talk therapy and medication management. And there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're seeking care at our community psychiatry on Collins Avenue or whether you have to be admitted. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. As an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist advocate, I tell people all the time that the constraints and the conditions that you are living and working through demand that you focus on your mental and psychological health. It is a part of their strategy to destroy you, and that's where they start. But I'm just a radical anti-imperialist advocate, I just out there. Dr. Christie, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're out of time. And for the texter, why Labor Week or season discussion is always disingenuous? Because it never addresses the constant flow of illegal laborers coming into our country. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. I gotta go. I'm all out of time. Let's thank Dr. Kirk Christie for joining us this morning. I'm going to have him back on the show with any of the members of his team that can join him. Tune in to Guardian Radio all day. Guardian Radio AM is up next. Have a great day, Bahamas.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.